All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Gridiron Gurus podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Los Angeles Rams and some of the stuff they've done to the secondary this offseason, making some splashes at the cornerback position. We'll start with Trent McDuffie. This was a trade that happened last week. It was a stunning one at that. They acquired one of the top corners in the entire NFL for a pretty large sum of draft capital, four selections overall, including the 29th overall pick in April's draft and then a third round pick in next year's as well. So this is a lot of capital to spend on a defensive player, especially one that plays the position of cornerback. And a lot of people consider this to be the top need for the Rams coming into the draft. And so they went ahead and took care of business, added McDuffie, got rid of that first round pick. Kind of equivalent, right? You can go find a guy in his prime, or you can take a risk on a guy. It's certainly going to be a lot cheaper, especially since they gave him that $124 million extension. That's pretty outrageous, 30 plus million dollars per year to a cornerback. He certainly has played at a very high level, but Les Snead pulling out all the stops there to make him happy. That's their new asset. The defensive assistant, Jimmy Lake, was actually his head coach in college at Washington, so there's at least one familiar face in the building for McDuffie. Kansas City, they did this a couple years back when they shockingly traded L'Jarius Sneed instead of giving him an extension to the Tennessee Titans. He actually just got released a few days ago, so it seems like they got it right there. You're hoping that they don't have similar fate, of course, with McDuffie, and I think he'll definitely deliver for the Rams and be a very good player. But the Chiefs are accustomed to doing this, offloading a star player before re-signing him, getting some nice capital in return. So I think from a Chiefs perspective, this makes a lot of sense. I think they like some of those younger guys they have on roster, so I don't think that team is in peril by any means. And the Rams are happy to have him in town if they're going to part ways with him. So I think the trade makes a lot of sense, even though four draft picks is definitely a lot. This roster's in great standing, though. They're not going to be in a bad position one bit, especially with how they've drafted continuously. McDuffie, he's been an outstanding performer. Didn't allow over 50 yards in a single game last season. Certainly struggled a bit in that playoff run 2 years back where the Chiefs got to the Super Bowl and lost to the Eagles. That's the only time I really saw him consistently struggle throughout his career. This guy is a really good blitzing corner, so I really think he's going to thrive in these simulated pressure looks in Don Shula's defense, zone heavy approach from the Rams over the last couple of seasons. That's where he thrives, especially with being such a sure-handed tackler out wide in space and underneath. So I think he's a good fit overall. He's a guy who can play in the slot as well. Really good in that regard. The flexibility is certainly going to be used in this scheme. Quentin Lake, though, he's in that role currently, coming off a great season, so probably not going to need him as much there, but they do have that flexibility. And that's great. This defense definitely wasn't perfect last year. You've seen the Seahawks in two games really, led by Sam Darnold, that passing attack torched them through the air. All they needed was to come up with a few more big plays, and they would have probably been in the Super Bowl. So Rams are identifying their weaknesses, going out there to upgrade them. Now, I definitely wonder what the Rams are going to do in terms of schematics, because I think that they might look to play a little bit more man coverage, and that leads us to the other addition I got in Jalen Watson. Also from the Chiefs, the tandem comes over from Kansas City to LA, coming off his best career season and his most reps he ever saw in a season as well. So Watson in a contract year played out of his mind, getting a pretty good contract here, $51 million over 3 years. He was a great run defender, only missed four tackles on the season, wasn't as polished in coverage on a constant basis as McDuffie, but still a guy that shined often as a rotational corner. Was very impressive in that role. I thought he really grew as the time went on, being very impressive for that secondary. And again, I think a lot of the zone last year was due to them not having the ideal skill in the secondary to play man coverage. You had Emmanuel Forbes, who's coming back, still in that rookie contract, but a player you're probably not looking at long term. And then their other corner departed for Dallas and Kobe Durant. So this is a cornerback room that was definitely in need of a makeover. And I know Forbes last year did give him some good reps at times, but still a player who's underperformed relative to where he was drafted in the first round. So I really like what they've done this offseason, going out there, spending some money. They had a good amount of cap, like 40 to 50 million to spend. So they used it on these corners, but they also re-signed safety Cam Curl. This guy's been tremendous. He's been a warrior, really. He's played 33 of the last 34 games for this team. He's been a field general for this secondary. He himself is coming off a career high 122 total tackles. He's been very viable in run support. So this is a guy who started his career in Washington, comes over to the Rams and earns an extension. 3 years for him, $36 million over that span. So they got these guys locked up for the foreseeable future. And then Quentin Lakey also recently signed. It was either a few months ago or it was last year. I don't know, but he is locked up long term as well. So the secondary is going to be playing together for a long time to come. I definitely wonder how he'll do in cover one man looks if they are going to look to play more man coverage as that free safety slash robber. How will he do in that role? Because it's definitely going to be a little bit different for him, especially if they're going to look to switch things up. Keeping the same defensive coordinator is great, but they're definitely, I think, going to have different coverage looks more often throughout this upcoming season and hopefully the foreseeable future. I think that's why they spent so much money in this secondary, so they can go out there and play good football in the secondary to help overcome the weaknesses they had last year, to give Matthew Stafford some help in what appears to be his final season. So I love what the Rams have done. What it means for them moving forward is that they have a nice young core in the back end that can really help out. They have some great players up front when it comes to pass rushing and run stopping ability on the defensive line. So this is a group that's kind of a youth movement, also mixed in with some veterans that aren't even that old. Guys like Watson and McDuffie, second contracts for them. So this is a defense that's going to have a lot of familiar faces for the next couple of seasons. And now you move ahead to what's the plan for the 2026 draft, right? Because corner was considered a big need for them. They still hold that 13th overall selection, and they still hold the 61st selection in the second round as well. So this is a team that still has some very important draft picks. And I think for them, it instantly turns to offense. And I think they're going to be targeting a pass catcher at number 13, more specifically, a wide receiver. Devontae Adams, he's an aging veteran, final year of his deal as well. Puka Nacua, of course, is in store for an extension, but the rest of the group's really not all that great. I think that they need to find some younger guys to put into this group, especially if Matthew Stafford is no longer going to be the quarterback. I mean, he can make anything work of anybody, right? But you're going to be breaking a new quarterback here soon, and they're going to need a more loaded receiving group. You look at Mekhi Lemon. This is a guy that won the Blitnikoff at USC, was a phenomenal playmaker across the board. He's not the fastest guy, maybe not the most polished route runner, but he's definitely a guy that can go out and catch the football with a great catch radius, strong hands, tremendous focus, good athlete overall. He's just a playmaker, and he's definitely going to be able to complement Puka Nakua very well. A guy that they can line up in the slot, they can put him out wide. Doesn't really matter. I think you're certainly going to see that versatility really start to come unhinged for him. Didn't see a lot of him in the slot last year. Didn't see a lot of him out wide, that is, last year. He was a pure slot receiver for USC, and they had Jacoby Lane out wide catching the tough balls and getting him work downfield. But this is a guy who makes a lot of tough plays down the seam. Pretty good yards after catch as well. Just a great athlete overall. I think this is a very versatile player. You have Jordan Tyson, on the other hand, who should be available as well. One of the two should be right. I don't think the run on receivers will exactly start. I know in some mock drafts I've had both of these guys off the board. Three guys really, because Cardinal Tate there, right? So three receivers could potentially go off the board in the top 11 picks. But I think there's a lot of defense that people are going to be looking to trade up for. So I think one of these receivers will be available. Jordan Tyson's a very savvy route runner, really does a good job versus zone, natural big play ability. He has hands and speed as well, wins vertically. I love the body control and leaping ability from him. Does need to improve against press man. Bit of a thinner frame, 6'2", 200, and the catch radius is really good, but sometimes he can be inconsistent in that regard, and his route running also needs some refinement. But Jordan Tyson's an excellent player, got a lot of targets when he was at Arizona State. And if they don't want to go receiver and they want to go tight end, even though this is an already pretty stacked tight end group for the Rams, they can throw Kenyon Sadiq in the slot, right? This is a guy that was a combine standout. We knew he was going to have a phenomenal day, right? But that really locked himself up as a first round selection. Great speed, explosive, good vision, and ability to create in space with yards after catch. He's a bit undersized for a typical inline tight end, but this is a guy that can line up in the slot and be consistent in that regard. Competitive player as well. Really blocks his tail off. Certainly needs some refinement, and when it comes to technique and better focus when it comes to drops. He had six of them last year. But this is a guy that can have a Brock Bowers type impact. I don't think he's exactly got the same upside as Brock, but it's definitely there to have productive seasons. This guy can give you a good 800 yards per year for a long time. And Sadiq's just a playmaker, and the athletic profile checks out tremendously on him. So I think there's three great options. One of these guys are going to be an LA Ram, I believe, in the first round of this upcoming draft. So great stuff this offseason. The Rams are getting their priorities straight, locking up some guys on the secondary, which is also going to lead to massive improvements. And then they also are going to open the door up to go elsewhere in the draft and add some more playmakers for this offense. So love what the Rams have done. Let's need cooking again. That's me for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.